welcome to Dragonheart. It's going to be a different one this week, a bit more of a makeshift one because Mark's ill, and I thought I'd just quickly run through the two games that we last had, Stockport and Halifax, two very, very different games. So yeah, I'll have a quick chat with you about that, and I'll have a quick chat with you about my experience as a cameraman for the Stockport game, the BT Sport highlights. So yeah, leading into the Stockport game, we needed a reaction really. We'd just been beat, in my opinion, the worst two ways you possibly could. We were the better side against Notts County, in my opinion. And we lost to a last minute winner against Torquay, so we really needed reaction. We had some new players come in for that game. We had Marsh Brown, who's a Guyana international, Sang, who I didn't really know anything about, and Omiato, Omateo, however you say it. And the only thing I knew about him was that he had an MMA fight, which he lost, I think, an amateur MMA fight. So yeah, that was quite interesting. And the Stockport game as a whole was really interesting, really, because for me, I couldn't really watch the game properly because I was a cameraman. I've never done it before, so I'd like to say thanks to the media team for giving me that opportunity. And yeah, it was a really unique experience, learning how to zoom in and talk to the BT engineers on their side while they were editing it for their highlights show in the evening. And yeah, it was really good, but I couldn't really concentrate on the game. I certainly couldn't make notes because I was having to follow the ball for the whole 90 minutes, and that's all it was. So I actually really struggled to concentrate on the game. It was one of the most strangest and bizarre things I've ever come across. I finished the game, I walked out, and I didn't really have an opinion on it because I couldn't really concentrate. But it was just one of those things I had to step in and help out wherever I could, really. But, you know, for the first 13 minutes, we pressed okay. We had some chances. Dior Angus had a chance. We looked alright. I wouldn't say we looked amazing, but we were going toe-to-toe from them. I think we were going toe-to-toe from them for most of the game. But, you know, they had a big hoof up in the air off the keeper, which landed a bit awkwardly. Maybe Kelleher was fouled, maybe he wasn't, maybe he should have been a bit stronger. But it landed to Alex Reid, who then slotted it in past French as well. So it's one of them. It's a bit of a sloppy goal to give away, but you could see Wrexham's heads went down and Stockport really got into the game, and they really controlled it for parts of it. And then their second goal, Wrexham playing around the back. Kelleher played it out, and it was a rare bad game for him, and it was a rare bad game for the defence. Stockport picked it up, found it at the edge of the box. They played the ball to Alex Reid. He scored again. The ex-Wrexham man would come to really haunt us this day. Well, all the ex-Wrexham players came to haunt us, really. And you know, we had other chances. We had a few corners in the second half, from what I can remember. But the second goal, ultimately, the third goal, come from a corner, which led out, and then it fell out to one-on-one with the keeper. And Rysel Johnson had to do something, in my opinion. So he might as well just go in for a tackle. We were 2-0 down anyway. Yeah, it was a penalty. It was a quite clear penalty. John Rooney slotted, another ex-Wrexham player slotted it in. 3-0 against the playoff rivals. And as I said, we just come from two games against playoff rivals where maybe we should have won at Notts County. We were the better side, but I think injuries really hampered us that game. And Torquay, yeah, it was one of them. It was a bit of a rubbish game, a bit boring. Wasn't the best game ever, but I probably would have taken a draw, and I think we merited a draw that game, in all fairness. Yeah, and we lost to a last-minute goal, so it was pretty bad, to be fair. But leading to the Halifax game, I was pretty scared, to be honest. I was a bit worried, a bit anxious, because the way we've been playing at the moment, and I know Halifax are a class side. They have Summerfield, who I really rate. He's a fantastic middle of the park centre midfield, creative player. Yeah, they're a really good side, and we were really needing a reaction to get our season back on track. Because I think if we had another bad loss at Halifax, I think a lot of people, a lot of fans be thinking that that's definitely our season over now.
I'm Luke Young, and you're listening to the Dragonheart radio show.
Leading into the game, I was in work. I checked the 11 before the game, and we had some. It was an odd lineup. It wasn't really one I really expected. Kelleher, Pearson playing together, and I don't think we've seen that centre back partnership. I could be wrong so far this season, and I was a bit anxious about that, because I didn't really think Kelleher and Pearson would work well together. But I was completely wrong, and Rutherford playing up front, not up front, just behind the strikers. I was a bit anxious about that, because he's not played regular football this season, but he proved me wrong as well. I was a bit anxious. And French playing the right wing back for Rhys Johnson as well. I thought we lost a lot of attacking threat without Rhys Johnson, but again, I was wrong again. But hey ho, I thought we were absolutely excellent straight off the get go. And this was some of the most positive football I've seen from the town this season. First half, I thought we had plenty of chances. We could have won 6 or 7-0 in the first half. We won a corner off an excellent Rutherford strike. It came in. Davis scores his second header this season. Excellent header, 1-0 up early on. Brilliant. Really happy with that. Just the reaction we needed. We were playing some really nice football in between. The second goal, Keller with a long ball which landed quite low for Mateo, and it was a really awkward ball for him to deal with, in my opinion. It was a beautiful crouching header flicked onto Dior Angus. He slotted it in, 2-0 up early on, and very happy with that, in all fairness. And then the third goal, Jordan Davis, who I've got to say was absolutely on fire. It was probably, for me, the best performance in the Wrexham shirt I've seen this season. And then Nathan Clark, who had the ball, they were playing it around the back, Halifax, and just as I said, in between the two goals, Halifax had their chances. They were giving us a good game. They're a quality side. Nathan Clark, their centre half, played a poor ball, which landed at Davis. He dribbled halfway through the pitch, took it round the keeper, slotted it in excellently. Brilliant, absolutely excellent. Very happy with that. We're 3-0 up. It's before half time. That's pretty much, in my opinion, probably the game over. Excellent, really. The fourth goal as well. For me, goal of the season. It did come off a corner from my recollection, or a ball in, or Mateo was making a nuisance for himself. Halifax won the ball. Then it was headed out by one of their defenders, which fell to Jordan Davis. He touched it, hit it on the half volley, and wow, what a strike! We haven't seen that from much long range strikes from him this season. He capped off his first hat-trick for Wrexham, I believe, and it was the first hat-trick in the first half since Wanyagati against Stockport away, and that was my first ever away day, so that was quite nice to hear. Jordan Davis, absolutely electrifying that day. 3 really different types of goals. He influenced the pitch, he spraying the ball really well, and that third goal was absolutely excellent. The second goal was brilliant. Wrexham go into the second half with not really much to do. We won 4-0, we could just sit back and chill, and it was absolutely excellent. So really, really happy with the Reds after that game. So it was 2 completely different performances within the space of a week. I'd just like to say a few things. I think Kelleher and Pearson played really well, and Carrington played really well together, and I didn't really expect that. Because, the Kelleher and Pearson, they're 2 stopper type centre halves. So I wasn't really expecting to be honest with you, I wasn't really expecting that to work. Rutherford played excellent. He was energetic. He was all over the place. He was here. He was there. Diorangus was brilliant. I think Diorangus could have got a hat-trick. He had so many chances. He was excellent. And Goldar Mateo, he's exactly the striker we needed. Someone who can hold the ball up for Diorangus. I think Diorangus struggles on his own up front. I thought he was brilliant, and it was a fantastic game for us. Great leading into a tough game against Woking on Saturday, and I think we're back in the playoffs, so we need to keep this charge going now. Let's hope we get on another run and more positive performances. This is Chay. Thanks for listening. Sorry again. It's a bit of a makeshift Dragonheart this week. It is what it is. Mark's ill. But thank you very much.
I'm Reece Johnson, and you're listening to the Dragonheart radio show.
Oh, thank you, Chay. Hi, it's Mark here. Just briefly, I've not passed my fitness test, but I've been okay to put in about 90 seconds off the bench. I think doing the commentary on the Halifax game took a little out of me. I was in quite a lot of pain for the next 2 days, and I went to my dentist to ask why, and he heard that phrase you don't want to hear very often: I can see the bone. That could be misinterpreted. I'm sorry, I brought the tone down. Anyway, brilliant work by Chay to go through those 2 matches. I'm gutted I wasn't able to talk about the Halifax match. Not so gutted about the Stockport match, to be honest. But anyway, to round off Dragonheart, here's a bit of a special treat. Who's the only Canadian to play for Wrexham? Why, it's Don Ferguson, a Canadian international keeper who played for us in the mid-80s. An absolutely lovely bloke. And I caught up with him to have a chat about his time at Wrexham. So, here is Don Ferguson.
I'm Kerry Evans, and you're listening to Dragonheart Radio Show.
Well, Don, firstly, thank you so much for joining us. There's so many different things I'd love to bring up with you. I've got to say, starting off, you first started with Wrexham 1986.
Yes.
But it sounds to me like you're a man who likes to act on his initiative. You made big efforts to get out there and play in Britain and other places.
Actually, it's funny. With the national program, we've been training, I guess, since the early 80s. And I was told, because that was a World Cup year, and Canada is the only time they've qualified for the World Cup. And he said, listen, you're going to have to play somewhere to get recognition and see if you can get pulled into the squad. So I went over, I had a friend of ours who had a soccer school in the London area. He says, tell you what, come and work. I'll work with you. And if I feel that you're good enough, he said, I'll get you trials. I said, beautiful. It was awesome. Yeah. So I went over, I did well in his training sessions. He set me up at Luton, which again was the first division team then. It was a very good squad. And I guess I come in and I ended up with a couple of opportunities. It's the old Roy of the Rovers story. I guess Andy Dibble. So yeah. I'm sure that you're quite familiar.
Yeah.
He was the keeper, and Les Seeley was the backup.
Oh gosh.
And it was a sort of a centenary match. It was with Watford. It was 100th year of Luton Town. So he ended up. It was Les Sealy was actually handing out all the gifts for. It was a youth team game, a women's game, and then the first team. And so Les Sealy, after the women's game, handed out the trophies and all the medals and everything, and left. So we're watching the warm up. I'm up in the crowd, and I look up and I went, Dibbs just pulled his hamstring. Like he's holding the back of his hamstring, and I'm thinking, okay, that's no big deal. Les Sealy will play. So one of the young apprentices runs up into the stands and says, Don, you got to come down. And of course, being Canadian, they thought, we'll take the Mickey out of him, you know. So I thought, get out of here, go away. So I told him to take off. So he runs down the stairs and runs back up about 5 minutes later. He goes, honestly, you have to come down. He says, you don't have to play. You just got to sit on the bench just in case Dibbs can't. Yeah. I said, okay, no big deal. So I go, sure enough, I go into the dressing room and there's a uniform waiting for me. So I put it on. He goes, don't worry, relax and stuff. I said, no problem. I run down the tunnel and all I could hear from the fans is, who the hell's that? Who's that? It was awesome. So I walk out the tunnel and David Pleats, the manager, he says, you're in. I went, what? And he goes, yeah, you're in. He says, Dibbs has got to come out. He's pulled his hammy. I said, oh my gosh. So I did the fastest warm up in a lifetime. I think I warmed up in like 2 seconds. And now coming into the game, the trialist, Don Ferguson. And everybody's going like, it's one of those, like the real, like a golf clap, a real slow clap. So I was going, oh my God, here, what am I doing? So first of all, right off the bat, I have a shot. I tip it around the bar and everybody's going, okay. So it's not a full clap yet, but it's that one still, it's almost like oh yeah, that's not bad. That's okay. So we're playing against, so John Barnes is actually playing it against for Watford at that time. So we do have a good a halftime. I come back in. He says, okay, we're going to do this, and this. I said, oh, great. So right off the bat, John Barnes has a free kick right on the edge of the 18-yard box and smacks one right in the top corner on me. And I had, it was Mitchell Thomas, I think was the fullback. He looks at me and excuse my language, he goes, what in goal, he says. He looks at me and he just, because I was already pissed off. I was pissed off getting scored on, right? And he goes, don't worry, we'll get this back for you. And sure enough, bang, we go back down, score, and the game ends 1-1. I'm like over the moon. So from that point forward, David Pleat, he liked me because I jumped in and into the foray, and I did well. It was awesome.
And that's a great Luton team. I mean, that really is peak Luton, the mid-'80s. Yeah. You've named half the players I used to get in my sticker books. It's just in that one game. They so. When you move on from there, I mean, you're going to get good recommendations for performing well at that level, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. And that was the thing. He actually put me on. He says, listen, I have a friend in Wales with a team called Wrexham. He says, would you be interested in going out? And I said, sure. I said, it'd be great. It was it was just after Christmas, I think, at the time. I'd stayed with my, the family I was staying with, had Christmas with them. Right after I took a bus up and took up to Wrexham. And I'm trying to remember, it was actually Randy Keane was the keeper, was it not? Didn't he come into the first team?
Mike Keane. Yes.
Mike Keane, yeah.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
And then he came in, and it was a New Year's Day game, and he goes up for a ball and gets cracked into the post and hurts his back. And this is like within days of me getting there, and all of a sudden I'm in the squad. It was actually, they ended up getting my work permit pretty quick in Wales, and I was in the squad. It was awesome.
Yeah. And I remember your first game was at Crewe. I remember seeing you, this big spidery figure in goal, a terrific reach. And the other thing I recall of that game was a bizarre incident where we scored and the referee disallowed it so we could have a penalty as well. So it was a sort of a bit of an odd introduction for you to that level of football.
Yeah, it was quite and from an acclimation into the game quickly. So it was, I think one of the first times I went up for a ball, I got cracked, hammered by one of the center forward. And I'm yelling at the referee, and he looks at me, he goes, don't worry, son. He goes, welcome to Britain. And I went, so I knew what I was up against from that point forward, I guess. So.
Yeah, exactly. And a Crewe pitch in January, I suspect wouldn't have been very welcoming. I mean, even if you're used to a Canadian winter, I still think that some of those pitches must have been hard work. Was that?
Well, I think it's pretty cold there right now, is it not?
Oh yeah. But nothing like you guys get, to be fair.
No, but I think that was one of the coolest winters I think we'd had in a while as well, and a lot of frozen pitches. And I think we played one game. I'm trying to remember who we played against, but there's only 4 games played in Britain on that day, and we were, of course, one of them. I think in the Daily Mail, there was a picture of me coming down for a ball with my foot up in the air and all this snow flying up in the air. And I think the heading was Snow Joke or something like that. So.
Well, you got injured quite early on as well. And then when you came back, you had the sort of game Wrexham fans dream of, heroics at Tranmere in the local derby. So you had this very strange start there as well.
Exactly. It was, again, Dixie was the coach, Dixie McNeil, and he told me that the player manager for Tranmere at that time was Frank Worthington.
Yeah.
And he says, listen, I tell you, Frank gets a penalty. He's probably going to go this side. I said, what do you mean probably he's going to go this side? He goes, well, you never know at the time. He says, well, but I would guess this way. So sure enough, I stopped Frank Worthington in the penalty, and I was over the moon. And I think that's when the fans sort of got behind me as well. I think I had the local fans who traveled to all the games, and anytime I met them in the town square, they'd all come up and talk to me about football. It was awesome.
Fantastic. I can't let you get away with your modest description there of that penalty. I mean, Frank Worthington was one of the great 70s iconic British footballers, in the style of George Best and Stan Bowles and Alan Hudson. He was a class act. That must have felt fantastic to stop a penalty from him.
Exactly. I used to see the information I read up on Frank Worthington after that point as well. So it was everybody was telling me how great this player was, and I'm going on. It was an exciting moment in my career. Still one of the best moments in my career. Oh, but yeah, fantastic. I was going to talk a little bit about the current situation at Wrexham a little later, because of course you are the only Canadian to have played for Wrexham. I was double checking my facts. We've had a player since who was born in Canada, but isn't Canadian. He moved out back to Britain when he was a little baby, so he doesn't count. Okay. And he considers himself a Yorkshireman, so he doesn't count. And I was going to ask you about that later, but I will just say just now then, because you mentioned the fans, that I mean, certainly Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds have been very keen to talk about how they recognise the sort of passion of the fans, yes. And there's also perhaps an sort of implication in what they say that you maybe don't get quite that same connection sometimes in North American sports. I think British people see it that way. I'm not so sure. I've seen the Stanley Cup regular riots and things like that. I'm not so sure the passion's not there. But, was it a surprise for you to see just how keen people in Wrexham are about the game? It was actually, and you can see it was sort of that live and die with the team, yeah. And that's what it was all like. I had conversations, and go to the pub for a beer and relax, and a few of them would come up and tell me stories about the history of the team, and it was actually great because I was on my own basically in Wrexham when I first moved there, and it was a great sort of acclimation to the area and to the team, and it's a beautiful part of the country. I loved Wrexham. I loved the surrounding area, and kind of missed it actually after a while. So, we'd have to get you back over for the first match that Ryan Reynolds can get over for, won't we? He can fly in his private jet over to the match, I reckon. There you go. Yeah. Sorry, again. I was going to say with a bottle of Aviator gin with him. Oh, absolutely. Oh, very good. Yeah, absolutely. Is there any other type of gin? Sorry, I'm contractually obliged to say that. There you go. Exactly. It's always also interests me because, I mean, the 80s, a time of real depression in Britain and a time of real depression in football. And I'm fascinated at the sort of impact that the passion of the fans had on you, because if you get all our average attendances for each season in our existence, the 10 lowest are the 10 years of the 80s. And it's interesting because obviously you see that, and you see that the crowds are really depressed even compared to now when we're at a lower level, but that passion and the passion of the away supporters obviously was still coming through really clearly for you. Yep. And it was funny. I guess I befriended quite a few of them, and I ended up leaving tickets for a few. And they thought that was the world. I'd given them the world just by living a couple tickets for a couple of, and you know what? And I think they were sort of they helped me along my way. They to the adjustment as well. So it was actually a fun time. A lot of fun.
Fantastic. And when you came back from injury, you played that Tranmere game, and then you became something quite rare in that season for us, a regular goalkeeper, because you then did play through the rest of the season, didn't you? Because before that, we were getting injuries hand over fist.
Yeah. I think the game I got injured was against Blackpool in the Cup, and I ended up coming up for a ball, and the guy went right through me. And I think I had at that time, concussions were not the end game, and not a lot of people knew anything about concussions. I think I had a doozy after that game. So,
oh gosh, it was. It must have been, I assume, frustrating that having been a regular keeper, you didn't get a chance then to stay on at Wrexham.
Yeah, it was funny. At the end of the season, I thought I had a good opportunity to stay, and I think Dixie was saying that he wanted what did he say, an experienced keeper. Somebody who had played in the league for a few years. I think because the fourth division at that time was known for its older pros and sort of up and coming players, was it not? That was sort of the adjustment of fourth division football. And so it was guys that really wanted to make a name for themselves, and guys who thought they still had the name.
Yeah.
So, and we had some great players on that team too, you know, like Barry Horn, who did a lot of the telecasts and everything, and a lot of the color for a lot of the games here in Canada. So that was kind of nice to hear his voice again. Right?
I should say that he did bring in an experienced goalkeeper there, and a very good goalkeeper in Chris Pearce, who had spent most of his time at Burnley. And ironically, after about half a season, he broke down with a back injury. And we were back in the same situation of swapping goalkeepers around, ironically. So, shame we didn't hang on to it.
Give me a call. I was there. I would have been there.
Yeah? Oh. You're saying about the players as well you played with. I've got to make a confession. As a kid, Jim Steele was my hero. I used to enjoy the fact that he would do to other sides' goalkeepers what that Crew player did to you. You know, what were players, players like him, what were they like as teammates? What did they feel like to be on the team with star players like them?
Well, I guess at Luton Town, they had Mick Hartford there as well.
Oh, yeah.
And that was one of my first training sessions. I think I stayed for a second session in the afternoon. Mick was coming back from injury, and he said, okay, don't worry. Mick's going to be taking some shots on you, and we'll just put some crosses in. He'll head a few. His headers were probably harder than most guys could shoot. I think at that time, it was incredible to see the power that he garnered on going up for a header and coming through. That's great. And then when I went to Wrexham, I thought Jim Steele was the same sort of character, and unbelievable in the air. And I tell you what, it was tough to go up. Like, we didn't have a lot of training sessions where there was physical contact, but I was always conscious of where he was if in a training session. So put it that way.
Like Jaws.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It was all elbows and coming through. It didn't matter. I think he would put the head on anybody. So
I was going to say that. I always suspected he had more than two elbows, but I couldn't quite work out how.
No, I think they were moving so fast it just looked like there was more.
Yeah. And then, of course, in front of you, we had some good defenders, but injury-prone defenders. I mean, Mike Williams, Jack Kay, they were good players, but we constantly were having to sort of make do and mend and switch other players around, and the fullbacks as well. It must be difficult for you you're coming into a new club, ostensibly a sort of new football culture and a new style of football, and then it's hard to get relationships going because the injuries were flying around that year like crazy.
I think Jackie took me under his wing. He was awesome. He would say a lot of times, he would just tell me, listen, let me take anything outside the box in that area. Let me take it. I'll clear everything. You stay there and you make the second save. And I think that sort of calmed me down in my early days there. And he really made an impression on me. I thought he was one of the best players, best center backs that I'd played with. Yeah. The other center back was Frank Jones.
Yeah,
Joey Jones' little brother, was it not? So, and he was a different character. I don't know if he had any touch at all. But again, he would throw his body in front of anything, block anything, and again, we had some good players there with a lot of heart, and that was great to see.
There were some real characters that you played with. Now, Di Davis, of course, came back,
Yep.
played just in Welsh Cup games.
Yep.
And it's been very interesting just to work with him.
It was my job was to stay behind the net and listen to him and acknowledge what he was teaching me. He'd be actually yelling stuff to me and, hey, this is what you should do in this situation. And I think I ended up. I always thought I was vocal, but I think I was a little bit more vocal after listening to him. He was quite the character and quite the drill sergeant, I would say.
Oh,
that'd be a nice way to put it.
Very high
I don't think
standards.
anybody.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody would have steered him wrong. So he would have told him so.
Yeah, exactly. And the sort of mentality which our current manager talks about a lot, of expecting a lot of yourself and expecting the same of the people around you, and that sort of attitude is going to lead to success, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, exactly. A couple of good results lately, so they've done well.
Absolutely, they're picking up. I'm sure you'll see from seeing football all around the world that the circumstances of COVID, in so many ways, I think have made football a little bit more random than usual. There are lots more inconsistencies amongst players and teams, and it feels like our entire division is inconsistent. But we seem to be gelling, and I'm quite pleased with what we're looking like at the moment. It's good stuff. But of course, I've got to bring up the obvious thing, which is we've had a bit of a takeover just the last few months. Now, of course, does that mean that the media beat a path to your door as our one past Canadian player?
Actually, it's funny. Only one of the outlets here, it's our Toronto paper, Toronto Star, did an article with me just after the news of the takeover, and asked me a couple of questions, because he sort of delved into it the same way you did. Say, listen, I noticed that you're the only Canadian, and told a few stories, and I think if you want to check into that, I can give you some information later. But it was actually a good article. He enjoyed it. He just said, listen, I'd love to do this again and talk about some old war stories with you about football. And so it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to do that interview and talk about Wrexham again. So.
I mean, from our perspective here, I guess the obvious thing we would want to ask is, has that created a stir over in Canada? You know, are people saying, wow, Ryan Reynolds bought a soccer team? Is that how it feels over there?
It seems to be. I know with social media, especially, I think it's been out there for quite a while, and he's known for his social media sort of quips and quibs. He loves to get out with him and his wife, Blake Lively. So they love to do a little few things, and especially him being the actor he is, he seems to adjust with little bits from his acting career to what he's doing now and stuff. So it's nice to see that he's actually on full bore as well. So
I'll tell you the thing which pleases me, because I'm a cynic actually, and I liked having the fan ownership, because twice in the 10 years before the fans took over, we nearly went out of business, and at least you know with the fans that they won't suddenly turn on the club or take assets away. You know, you're safe there. And so my attitude until I heard of this takeover was I don't want to take over, because why would someone take over Wrexham? It's not an investment. It makes no sense. Usually people come in with ill intentions. The moment the club owned the ground, people wanted to buy the club, because then they could just kick the club out and build on the ground. The moment the club didn't own the ground, all of a sudden all those suitors left, and I thought that spoke volumes. But this does look hopefully just like that fairy tale thing, because wonderfully they genuinely do seem to be saying we want to pick up a project and help it. And something that's massively pleasing for me, the fans really made the club a community club. There's so much good work done for the community, and their attitude, both Ryan and Rob, seems to be they want to supersize that. So they've already said they'd be putting more funding in for the people there who work with disabled people, who work in women's football, which is we've started up, but it'll get a big boost now. We've also different things in the community, and I just think it's fantastic to have people taking over with that as much of an important thing for them as getting promoted.
I think I just read recently that they actually paid some of the workers as well from part of the COVID shutdown of last year. They paid the wages back, and I thought that was an interesting proposition. I think that's something that you can see that maybe they will delve deeper and bring Wrexham back to where it should be, right? And back into league football. So
yeah, a lot of people are getting very excited about what they could do. I think in realistic terms, they mainly want to bring us back into the Football League, but they'd like to take us further. But I don't think they see themselves as having the resources to turn us into a Premiership team. Some people think we're going to be playing Real Madrid in 4 years' time. Only if they suffer quite badly. Catalonian independence takes off and they end up applying to the League of Wales.
But you never know with teams like Bournemouth and teams like that have come through the. I mean, they that was like a success story itself. So,
well,
right?
I mean, you're quite right, and as well. I mean, think back to your time here as a fan. You're sort of still getting to know the game at that time. I viewed, and in my head, it's still there. Teams like Wigan, who've won the FA Cup and been in the Premier League, Bournemouth, like you said, as smaller teams than us, because they've risen beyond us. And Blackpool, you mentioned Blackpool. And Blackpool have been up in the Premier League twice since then. It's there's got to be potential, isn't there, for a club like us to push a bit more.
And that's what it's all about, is it not? Like, I mean, there has to be the potential to see the potential first of all, and put your money behind it and back it, and that's the key. I think that's again that's what you're talking about with the fans. They want to see that backing and that success through with the franchise itself. So
yeah, exactly. The if I could just mention, just to tell you quickly as well, with the furlough and the payment of the players, this has gone down very well with independent observers of the game, because there are some teams in our league who have used this scheme essentially to lay off players. So in order to improve their squad, they've essentially sacked some players by putting them on furlough, and have then bought more players in, which is clearly not the intention of the scheme. And so an awful lot of people have been pointing us out and saying, well, we've just paid everybody every penny they should have got back. And that's the idea of what you should be doing as a responsible business owner. So it's nice to feel that sort of sense of pride that a club's doing the right thing. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to see, actually. Very nice to see. Absolutely. It's honestly, I've just got to say, Don, it's been an absolute privilege and a pleasure to talk to you. It really has been. As I said to you off air before, and I enjoyed watching you play, and it's just been brilliant to chat about players from that era who were formative for me as a Wrexham fan as well. Just a final question. I mean, what happened afterwards? What are you up to now? Well, it's funny. I left Wrexham. I ended up flying into Vancouver, as we talked about it previous, and I went in with the World Cup squad just prior to them leaving for Mexico. So of the squad of 23, 24 players, I come in and I basically flew in. I think I flew in that night, arrived in Vancouver. I think it was 7 a.m, and I was on the field for 9 o'clock session. So it was lovely. I was a very tired boy. So Tony Waiters at that time you remember Tony Waiters, who played for England, I think, at that time, and he was the manager at that time. So a former goalkeeper as well. So you see a lot of us goalkeepers around, and I mean, I think a lot of them make good coaches because they see the field for what it is. Yeah. They see everything in front of them, and that's what I've been doing. I think since then, the Canadian League started up just after that. A lot of pros come in from another fellow named Mike Williams, who was actually in the squad, I think, at Wrexham at one time. So he ended up playing with us in Ottawa for a season and two, and I think he enjoyed his time there. So it was a fun time. They were 4 or 5 years, and then I started coaching right after that. And as you can tell from this, I coach at the university level and with club level. Now we have semi-pro teams and stuff that are involved. We have at the university, we've now have a franchise that we'll be looking at starting this summer, hopefully, with all the COVID. We haven't had a lot of football in the last little while because of the COVID restrictions, but
hopefully soon we'll have something. So
it's a blow, isn't it? I mean, COVID obviously is a blow, but especially because Canadian football was looking to take big steps forwards at just a time when this has come in and then shut things down to an extent, hasn't it?
yeah, it has, and it's football everywhere right now. I think I even have my own little goalkeeper academy as well that I've been running, and I haven't been able to do that. So it's probably the longest I've ever been off. I think it's 3 months now. I think I've been off, and it's probably the longest I've actually gone without kicking a ball. So I'm looking to get back at it and start kicking the ball around as well.
Oh, well, I hope you're able to do that soon. I've got to ask you about one of my goalkeeping prejudices here as well, actually, because I'm a failed goalkeeper. And so when I'm commentating, I'm constantly...
I don't think there's such a thing. I don't think there's such thing as a failed goalkeeper. I think anybody that puts the gloves on and stands between the sticks, I think they have something good going for them. So
I respectfully disagree, and I'd suggest that I'm the exception that proves the rule. But anyway, I'm always arguing with people because I need you to help me with this. Am I right or am I wrong? I think that really only goalkeepers understand goalkeepers. And a number of times I'll be commentating with somebody and they'll say, that's an amazing save. And I'll say, no, it's not. Actually, it's quite straightforward. Or the opposite. They'll say, well, that's really difficult to get down to. That doesn't look spectacular, but it's brilliant. And I think that sometimes happens with managers, I think, because, as you say, a goalkeeper is well suited to be a coach, I think, because, like you said, you're controlling the players in front of you on rods, you're organising the entire team. And yet, it doesn't seem to me that many managers were goalkeepers. And I often look at a manager's decisions over goalkeepers and think, why on earth have they chosen that guy ahead of the much better guy, in my eyes? Am I right to say that really only goalkeepers properly understand goalkeepers, or is it just me trying to be arrogant and put people down? I don't know.
I don't think you're half wrong. I think it's funny how a lot of the coaches I think I've been around with throughout the years, I think they've been involved with the game. I think in Canada now, with our licensing the way it is, there's a lot of people who are licensed at a high level, but have never played the game and never really seen the game for what it is. I think once you do that, and especially as a keeper, the keeper is it's a very difficult position, and I think not everybody can play that position, and it takes a special person to play there. So to coach them, they may need a little bit more empathy. That might be a nice way to put it, but I think that's the case. That if most goalkeepers do make mistakes, we want them to make mistakes because that's the way we learn as a goalkeeper, right? And I'll give you, for instance, look at Allison over the last few games with Liverpool, who's struggled a bit with his kicking and his decision making, but yet on Tuesday he came up with the big save that actually pushed them forward, I think, into bigger and better things. So again, we make mistakes to make ourselves better, and not everybody. Hopefully, coaches will see us for that. Right? I
wish I'd use a coach, because that's the thing I learned too late, not to dwell on the crazy things I did, but I regret it instantly.
But it's a given. I mean, I look at our record. I think we actually rose up the table that year quite well. I think we were up. I think I'm going to go with 5th or 6th in the table at that time, and we lost 3 games in a row, 1-0. And 3 weeks in a row we lost 1-0, and it dropped us down to like 13th or 14th in the table. It's such a tight schedule, tight fit that even a tie, like you look at Liverpool, all the ties they've had this year. If they probably won 3 or 4 more games, they're right up and around the top as well. But absolutely. Again, that's all it takes, right?
Absolutely right. Yeah, it's fine margins, and that's the situation Wrexham we're in.
It is
at the moment, really, where it's so tight. You can go either way. So, honestly, Don, it's been an absolute privilege to speak to you, and thank you so much for joining us. Wish you well, and like I said, we'll put a word in with Ryan to get you on that private jet over for his first game.
Well, my wife's all excited. She says maybe they'll bring you in as the goalkeeper coach. So
let's hope our current goalkeeper coach isn't listening, but nonetheless.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just kidding.
The other side, you're listening to the Dragonheart Radio.
So there you go, Don Ferguson, one of the nicest blokes you could ever hope to meet. What a top man. and it was a real delight to chat to him. And he is, of course, the precursor to Ryan Reynolds. So, again, thank you to Chay for stepping in and doing such a magnificent job. Next week we should be back to normal. Next week we might even get to do that cursed section on players we got rid of too soon, which we've been trailing for 2 weeks and are not able to do. So, fingers crossed, eh? There's only one way to finish Dragonheart anyway, isn't there? It's Jay Harris, Hollywood Send-Off.
This is Jay Harris, and you're listening to Dragonheart Radio.